Moving on to the next presentation, cyberbullying.
Hi, my name is Catherine Stamp, and I am a junior at Los Gatos High. And I'm Tanya Lee, I'm a junior from Cupertino High, and we're going to be talking about cyberbullying. So what is cyberbullying? Well, according to the definition, it's the use of the internet and related technologies, such as smartphones, to harm someone else in a deliberate, repeated, and hostile manner.
So how do teenagers usually think about cyberbullying? Well, from a quote that we gathered from our survey, cyberbullying isn't really a real thing. Teenagers are naturally cruel and rude to each other, and it has nothing to do with the internet or social media. And we know this is not necessarily true because cyberbullying has a more personal aspect to it that normal bullying can't really get into.
So how is it different from regular bullying? Well, a lot of times people say maybe cyberbullying isn't a real thing because it's not, punching or violence or physical bullying. But it really is a problem. And the difference is, when you think of real physical bullying, it's face-to-face, it's in person. But cyberbullying is on the internet, so you're not talking to this person face-to-face. The bully can post impulsively anytime and anywhere, and they could do it instantly. So maybe you would have to wait for a day or two if you were really mad at someone, if you wanted to bully them at school, and then maybe by that time your anger would have calmed down a little. But with cyberbullying, a person can post a mean comment or picture immediately, and so it's an increasing problem because a lot of the times you can post on anonymous websites and your identity is hidden, so you don't have to take responsibility for your actions. So websites that it commonly occurs on are Facebook or other social media sites, and also anonymous sites like Tumblr, Formspring, and YouTube. And on these sites, you can make an account or post without leaving any name, and so this person can get mean comments or hate comments, but the person that posts that comment doesn't have to take responsibility for posting it.
So are there any particular cases of cyberbullying that are prevalent in media that people particularly know about? Well, before the internet got taken over by Gangnam Style, there was a song that was fairly viral on the internet. It was called Friday by Rebecca Black. Anybody know? Okay, that's okay. But anyway, the song was really infamous for its rather monotonous tone and its lyrics. So it got to the point where people started posting comments on the girl's video, such as, "You suck, Rebecca, please die." Or, "Thank you, Rebecca, I puked on my screen." The point of comments, usually in YouTube, is to make a comment about the song, but the people that chose to comment on the video usually commented on the person itself, personal attacks, if you will. And it got to the point where Rebecca Black became so depressed that she considered suicide.
So cyberbullying is both public and widespread. All of the personal stories and quotes are from the survey that we took of teens in the Bay Area. But cyberbullying isn't just a problem in the Bay Area. It's a problem throughout California and throughout America, and like this chart shows, all over the world. So one of the quotes that we got in the survey says, "I know a girl who got into a car accident and these mean boys kept posting pictures of her car and calling her stupid." So one of the main problems with cyberbullying is that if somebody posts a mean picture or comment like that, a lot of different people can see it, especially if it's on Facebook. It can be public, and so not only is the person feeling bad because somebody bullied them, the person feels bad because everybody else is seeing those mean comments as well.
So what are the different types of cyberbullying? Usually in real bullying, there's only one type. You all gather together and then maybe you say a few insults to the person, and that would be your type of bullying. Well, in cyberbullying, there are several types. There is the equivalent of actual bullying on the internet. It's called slander, which is when you make a public attack on a person. Other types of bullying include private bullying. Private bullying usually involves when you send messages specifically to the person without other people seeing it. For example, you call them ugly, stupid, or any other attack to hurt them. And private attacks are much more personal and much more painful than public attacks, because public attacks are more general. There's also the anonymous attack. Anonymous attack doesn't mean that the person actually has to know you're not, hence the name anonymous. It's usually people who choose to hide their identity and then they attack you. There are people called trolls who specifically do this type of activity just to elicit a reaction from you.
So how often does cyberbullying happen? Well, in the survey that we sent out, we found that 68% of teens said they hadn't been cyberbullied personally, but that 32% said that they had been cyberbullied or that they had witnessed cyberbullying directly.
And another quote that we got from the survey, a sophomore girl said, "Yes, what people say on the internet can be very hurtful. People on the internet are totally different than what they are in real life. I feel very strongly about this because I believe people really don't have to share everything in life. It's not necessary."
So cyberbullying is more common than you think. A lot of people think that because it happens on the internet, then it can be solved or that it doesn't really affect people. But this quote that we got says that, "I know people that have been cyberbullied, and I have too. My friends were called names and had gossip spread about them, and for me, they just made fun of me or made fun of my interests for not doing cool activities such as drugs. And they claimed that this person forgot his friends when he moved, and they said he was an awful person." So this really shows how personal cyberbullying can get and how cyberbullying can bully groups of people or friends and how other people can gang up on one person.
And another story that we've received from the survey, a guy in my class kept chatting me and saying things that were very unnecessary. They really hurt. He called me ugly and said that if I ever got a boyfriend, he would break up with me because I'm so ugly. It really hurt and it took me a while to get over it. This is an example of how it doesn't have to be between two people that are on the internet bullying each other, and that would be called cyberbullying. It could be between you and another person in real life, but the argument and the conflict was taken to the internet into a personal attack.
So in a UCLA survey, they found that 60% of teens that had been cyberbullied didn't tell their parents about it. And parents might ask, well, why don't their teens tell their parents that they're being cyberbullied? Well, 42% of that 60% said that the reason they didn't tell their parents was that they thought they just needed to deal with it. And sometimes this can be the case. If the cyberbullying is a singular instance and it's relatively light, the teen might be able to deal with it by themselves and really make it a learning experience and grow through it. But on the other hand, cyberbullying can get out of control very quickly. And so teens, it's important that if you witness cyberbullying or if you're being cyberbullied, that you confide in a parent or trusted adult to get help so that it doesn't spiral out of control. And also 35% said that they didn't tell their parents because they were afraid of unnecessary actions or afraid of punishment. And the reason for this might be that parents often feel that completely restricting internet access is the best way to deal with cyberbullying. However, this only results in a breakdown of communication. Basically, parents might think if they completely restrict internet access or Facebook access, that will solve the problem, which sounds logical, but in reality, it often makes the problem even worse. For example, if you stop Facebook access, the bully might stop posting mean comments on Facebook, but then they might start insulting your son or daughter in real life, and that might potentially become worse. So limiting Facebook access or internet access is probably a bad way to deal with cyberbullying because, for one thing, it might not fix the problem at all, and for another thing, it might create conflict because your teen would resent the fact that you completely limited their internet access. So the best way to deal with cyberbullying, if your teen comes to you and says, "I'm being cyberbullied," is to ask them what kind of help that they want you to do. So if you give them the help that they ask for, that will be the first step in solving the conflict, and it will be a lot better than if you try to take unnecessary actions.
So, which brings us to our next slide. As you wait for your child to come to you to tell you whether they're being cyberbullied or not, what are some things that you can observe or do? So, you can search for signs of cyberbullying. For example, if your child suddenly stops using the computer, it has to be rather different from what they're used to. If they're used to going on the computer a lot and then they suddenly stop, then there's probably something wrong and something going on the internet that they're trying to avoid. If they look rather nervous or rather jumpy, it could also be a sign that they're being cyberbullied. And when you approach them to ask about what they're doing on the computer, if they avoid discussion about their activities, it's possible that they're being cyberbullied. Once they approach you to tell you about their situation, what are things you could do? You should, it is best to talk about them in a more empathetic way. The immediate reaction would be, oh, I'm going to cut off all your internet access. If I cut off the source of how you're being bullied, then that should immediately fix the problem. But that will cause resentment and anger. So it is better to let your child talk it out with you and tell you about their feelings. And
and while you give them support, and you should react empathetically to them and give them the support that they need during this time.
So the breakdown is that parents often don't know how to handle it, and for teens often don't trust their parents to take appropriate actions. So the best way to fix this is to be open about internet usage in general, and to be understanding if cyberbullying happens, and give your teen the help and support that they ask for and that they need. And with that, we'll give it back to Nick.